agenda. So the first item is apologies for absence. There is one for Councillor James Toogood, who's not very well at the moment, so I'd like to make sure that that's officially recorded. And the next item is any declarations of interest pertaining to the agenda items? I'll take that as no then, so we can pass on from there. Okay, item number 3 is minutes of previous meetings. So the first one, which requires our actions, is the minutes of the last town meeting, which was on the 9th of February. So firstly, for accuracy, although these were distributed, it's fine by me, but if there is any inaccuracies that you want to flag up now, Ernie.
I just wanted to update. You'll see at the end it's Maggie Nouns came over to ask whether we are able and willing to support Ventnor Council. It's at the end of the public forum. And regarding that, John gave me some very good advice when they first came to us, the Tree Society, saying that they'll tell us what to do, we shouldn't do too much beyond that. We've gathered 3-4 extra people interested in tree wardens, we've put forward in place preparations to begin the training, and that was 4 months ago. Tree Society's kind of falling apart a little bit on the Isle of Wight. They aren't integrating well with the Isle of Wight Council, and I've messaged the main fella. He's not sure. It seems like they're all in a bit of a rough patch, but hopefully later on this summer they should be able to deal with that. But then questions arise, because eventually I'm going to have to step down as councillor and presumably Tree. I'm presumably hoping that Maggie Nouns will be able to do that, but of course she's getting fairly old and I don't want to dump stuff on her plate. So the future of whether the Tree Society and Ventnor is a bit uncertain. And I'm sorry about that. It's all a bit silly at the moment.
Okay, well thanks for the update anyway, Ernie. It's greatly appreciated. Any other issues that you want to flag up for the minutes? Okay, so if we're happy that that's a true and accurate record, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Watkins and a seconder. Councillor Jeffries. And show of hands, please. Okay, that's passed. Okay, the next is Buildings and Maintenance, Environment and Transport, Planning Committee, Policy and Resources. This is all for your information only. Okay. And the next item is the Finance Report. Morgan, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to update you on the finances at the end of March 2026, being the end of the financial year, it shows you on the summary page a good summary of our approximate position. Because of the size of our council, rather than running receipts and payments accounts, which is what accountants refer to as cash books, we actually have to convert that into income and expenditure. So there's some income and expenditure from the previous year that will actually have been approved for and contribute to this year's budget. Similarly, there are some costs that go the other way. We've made payments in this year that relate to the next year. There'll be some payments, usually mostly in April, that relate to the March just gone. So there's some tidying up to do before you get the actual final accounts. But just note that the reconciliation of the bank accounts has been completed, and the payments during January and February are attached for your information. And there's a list of the sort of key variances that have happened during the course of the year, mostly with explanations, but very happy to take any further questions if there are any.
Steve.
Can I make just one observation and one overall question? The number 31 bus line is one of those where the accruals you talk about does kick in, because we had a grant 2 years ago which we apportioned between the 2 years, so the second year needs to go against that, just in case anyone's picked up on that discrepancy. The second sort of overall question is, we obviously need to get these audited and they are approved by the town council meeting, so that is the next meeting in May.
It will be June that those will go to. Yes. And yes, to pick up on the 31 bus point, we did indeed accrue for that. Because of the way that the grant funding worked, it was actually spread over 3 years, so it's been apportioned appropriately.
Any other questions before I make a statement? Okay, so for the benefit of the officers, Morgan and Alison, Council has had a pre-meeting before this council meeting with members of the public and Ventnor Traders Association, and you probably won't be surprised at that, but I intend to engage with them to try and iron out a better representation of how we can present figures, so that it is even more crystal clear on how we're spending money and what pots of money we're actually spending. So it's just for your information.
Yeah, indeed. I recall about 18 months ago we moved from the previous system into this committee system, and the finances are presented as such now. So yeah, if there are tweaks that we can make to make it better and more transparent, easy to understand, then yes, we'll make every effort.
And the reason I said that is just to put that on record. Okay. Okay, if there's no further questions, could I have a proposer? Steve Milford, and a seconder, Steph. And show of hands, please. That's gone through now. Okay, so again, Morgan, I assume that you're doing the financial risk assessment.
You assume correctly, I guess, all the most exciting bits.
Yes, I thought so.
Yes, obviously members will be aware that we undertook the most recent financial risk assessment in December, but our auditor last year noted that it should really happen a lot earlier on in the year. There's no point assessing the risks after you've already undertaken them. So it's very much along the same lines. Not much has changed in mode of operation since December. So that's just for you to approve that schedule, subject to any amendments or additions you may wish to make to it.
I've got one question. On the salaries, there's a box that says wrong salaries paid, and we've got that as a low risk, and I totally agree with the low risk, but just for clarity, has that ever occurred?
That has occurred in the past and was corrected in due course with the actually undertaken by the Policy and Resources Committee. But all payments are checked against contracts for accuracy before they're approved.
Okay. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, I mean, the only issue that arises, Chair, which I think takes us, which are probably better discussed in the next item, is just the issue about the risk from loss through theft and dishonesty, which we discussed at Policy Committee. But since that effectively is picked up by the next item, we'll probably best deal with it then. But I'm not sure that low and annual insurance check is quite sufficient in terms of dealing with it.
Okay. Any other questions? Sorry.
I'll respond to that briefly in this section, though I appreciate you may want to pick it up more in the next. Our insurers, actually as part of reviewing our policy, which is midway through a 3-year term, did clarify whether we needed more insurance cover for the case of fidelity cover, and again the Policy and Resources Committee agreed to increase the level of cover just to make sure that we're protected in that instance.
Okay. I've got one other comment, and it's about election costs, and I'm doing it for the benefit of the public gallery as well. As people may not be aware, but when a by-election is called, it costs the town council a significant amount of money. But we have talked about contingency plans of putting that forward and having that budget covered. Did you want to say anything on that at all?
Yeah, indeed. So in this financial year, we budgeted for a cost of £5,500. We were very fortunate that the sort of correct number of members stood for election, so they were appointed by default rather than having to go through an actual election process. The year-end accounts will show the money left over as being ring-fenced in a reserve pot that can be drawn upon in future years or built up as is sensible. Noting on election costs, I'm aware that one by-election in Sandown costs about £5,000 just on its own for one seat, so they clearly are a cost that we need to make sure we're covered for.
Yeah. Steve?
Just my thing is, in terms of the description of election costs, it talks about all of my council invoices. The risk is one, a by-election happening, and two, Isle of Wight council elections not aligning with town council elections. Neither of which much we can do a lot about, but those obviously, those are the actual risks, I would say.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not it's a certainty, isn't it? Given that the current Isle of Wight elections are for a 4-year span. They're 1 year in Hampshire, but 4 year in the Isle of Wight, and they've been delayed a year. So,
They're not for 3
are they for 3? Sorry,
It's a 3 year.
okay. So we're out of sync with Hampshire, but we're back in sync with parish councils. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I stand correct.
Cool.
Is the only option in that event a by-election?
No, under normal circumstances, the council would have the option to co-opt a member, and we do have a process for that. But if 10 electors write to the returning officer within, I believe it's 30 days of the vacancy occurring, they can write and demand that an election happens, which has happened in the past. Similarly, we've had by-elections in the past. We've had co-options.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on the risk assessment? Okay, if not, could I have a proposer, please? Mark, and a seconder? Please, Steve, and a show of hands, please. Thank you, that's passed. Okay, the Town Council's bank account, I'm assuming that's you also, Morgan, is it?
Funnily enough, it isn't.
Right, okay.
You have to say that,
Alison.
Annie.
Yeah, I'll pick this one up, yeah. So currently, payments on the Town Council's bank account are to a limit of £30,000 per day or per transaction. So, you know, there could be 3 payments of £10,000 each or one of 30. Either way, the limit is 30. With staff salary increases to be taken into account and the fact that the Town Council, I believe, should be paying staff on the same day, i.e. the 20th of the month, rather than split across 2 separate days. It's been suggested that the limit is raised from 30,000 to 40,000 limit per day, with individual payments, any individual payments over 30,000 requiring 2 authorised signatures.
Okay, thank you very much. Ian.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed this at policy committee, and there are two separate issues. I would suggest the issue of raising the ceiling is obviously sensible if our payroll is getting close to that amount, and that members were happy to agree that. But we were concerned at the possibility that one member of staff could make the payment on their own without a counter signature, and we were concerned about that as a general risk, not just about payments above 30,000. Because, you know, even if it's 10,000, if somebody does that for a week before it's spotted, I mean, that's a significant chunk of the council's money.
Correct.
So what we agreed at policy committee was we would propose that council requires a process where either all payments or all payments over a de minimis amount require 2 signatures. So thereby removing the possibility that one dishonest person can run off with a significant chunk of money.
Yep.
And I would suggest that's what we need to agree here. Now, we need to research what the implications of that process is, but we believe they're standard in other councils, so it ought to be possible.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I chair that committee, and I was, somewhat alarmed that there was only one signature. So I suggested that it should be 2 signatures for the obvious reasons that Councillor Bond has pointed out. Steve.
Yes, I think it's sensible to have 2 signatures on higher amounts, and we could be authorising, packet size of £10, £15 going through. We don't think we necessarily want 2 people involved in each and every transaction, but perhaps a de minimis amount of, it could be another, say, 5,000. We aren't going to have many transactions over that. Might be sensible, I might be guided by more than others, but I think the 2 signature thing should be for significant amounts.
Yep.
But the other issue that arises from the risk assessment, I mean, an annual check is obviously no good. I mean, hypothetically, if somebody did start helping themselves to £1,000 a day, do we have a feel for how long before that would be spotted? Would it be the bank statement or the reconciliation that you do however often? Or
it would be within the week that would be noticed, unless it was the clerk doing it, basically.
If it was the clerk doing it, how long?
I imagine it wouldn't roll into the next week without our administrator noticing.
But yeah, we laugh, but we've had a number of unexpected issues with staff, nothing to do with theft, I hasten to add, but you never know what you're going to get yourself into with employing people.
Indeed. Any other comments? No? Okay, can I have a proposer?
Or we need to amend
Yeah.
Yes.
what's here. The 30k needs replacing. I mean, obviously I had a figure even lower than Steve Milford's 5,000. I don't know how many. I mean, if you look at the payments that we made in the financial report to get a feel for it, most of them are under 100. It has to be said.
Yeah.
Certainly, most of them are under 1,000. So I'm not quite sure.
Well, the recommendation is that we approve the 40k.
Oh, the 40k
Yeah,
as
but
a ceiling
it's
is fine, but
different.
the level over which we require 2 signatories should be hugely lower. And if you look at the set of payments, I mean, we hardly make any 4-figure payments. So I don't see it would. The council's not going to grind to a halt if we require 2 signatories for anything above 1,000.
Okay, so all right, you okay with that, Steve? Yeah. Okay. So that's a proposal.
So the amendment is to replace the 30k with 1k,
Yeah.
and then if the amendment's agreed, we
Correct.
then go to the substantive.
Okay.
Can I
Okay.
just ask what the process is? Is it as simple as just a...
It's digital. Most of the payments that we do very little by cheque these days, so it would require one person to set the payment up effectively and a second person to then log on and confirm and approve it before it's actually made, before it leaves the bank account.
How long does that take? That's just a minute or two? Or,
It is
or-
just a minute or two, but I'd suggest that in the office we arrange it so that payments are set up in a batch
Yeah.
and can then be approved in a batch rather than one by one, because otherwise we are going to tie the office up.
Well, this is what I'm thinking, is if
Yeah.
you've got lots and lots of little payments and each one,
Yeah,
has even if you batch them together, it's another task. So we do need to think quite
Indeed.
finely about what the sweet spot is, I think. So.
That's why I was suggesting 1,000, because if you look at the payments, that isolates relatively few payments.
Would you agree with that, Paul?
I'd say that's reasonable, yes.
Okay. Unless you happen to have a figure in mind, Carl.
No.
Okay. All right. So
It's a good sweet spot.
okay. So the proposal is £1,000. So would you like to? You're proposing that?
Yeah, and when we say require, we mean require, don't we? We don't mean you're supposed to ask somebody else to sign it. We mean
We
it can't
require.
physically be made unless somebody else does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would anyone like to second? Yeah. Okay. That's Steve. Okay. Can we have a show of hands? Okay. That's gone through. And then obviously the substantive, which is increasing it from expenditure of 30k to 40k. Okay, so Ian and John's proposing a show of hands, please. Yeah, that's gone through as well. Thank you. Okay, next item is about Planet Aware. I think the paper is self-explanatory, but do either one of the officers want to explain why this has been put on the agenda?
Yeah, I'll briefly explain, but then I'll hand it over to Mark to
Yeah.
give a little bit more detail. Basically, this came up as an agenda item at Environment and Transport back in July 2024. And the idea was from Planet Aware that if we were to provide, if Ventnor Town Council were to provide their logo and also some ballot boxes and emptying thereof, could we do that? Could we help them fund that? With that, the resolution on that was to reject that. But since I know that you and also Mark have been in discussions with the lady who's organising this, and so it's back on the table, and rather than wait for the next Environment and Transport meeting, it's back on the table, not for financial implications, but basically to include the Town Council's logo.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you. So I went to the last presentation at Beveridge Yacht Club, and I was approached by Planet Aware, and at the moment they're actually working with Ryde Town Council to do this same project there. All they are asking is for our logo to actually go on their posters, basically, at no financial cost to us. So it's
Just supporting kindly.
supporting kind, basically.
Yeah. Okay, Ernie?
if they'd also be looking for a volunteer just to further show Ventnor is fully behind this, would they want that type of thing? Someone just go around and do this type of thing for them or with them?
Yeah, maybe it's worth a discussion. So.
Well, next time any of you guys see them, if you could mention them, I'm happy to
Okay.
help out, because I've got a history of volunteering for this type of stuff with Ventnor Council and other things, and going around Ventnor, putting up post-its and leaflets is, yeah, I've done that plenty and happy to do it again.
Okay.
Any other comments? Well, I'll just say that I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. We know that that's a pain for everyone, and we know that that has a negative environmental impact as well on our community and environment, so I'll be supporting it. But can I have a proposer? Mark and a seconder, Linda, and show of hands? Okay, that's passed. Okay, so I can say something about the support in kind, but do you want to say something, Steph, or any of the officers? Do you want to say anything at all?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I think Catherine did most of this work,
Mhm.
didn't she?
Indeed, yeah.
And I think she's been very thorough and left it quite wide open so that people can apply from various areas around Ventnor. So no, I think a lot of thought has gone into this, and unless there's any tiny thing needs changing, I think it's really good. And I think it's an excellent way of us being able to assist with things around town in our present financial position, making a different way of showing our support and helping to keep things thriving.
Thank you, Steph. Yeah, the draft of the policy was agreed at Policy and Resources meeting on the 3rd of March, and it's come to the Town Council meeting for information.
Indeed. So I'll just say why I support this is that I'm a policy-driven person. Because I think if you've got a policy on something, then you can go back to it and say this is what the policy of our organisation is. There's a lot of organisations in our community that we want to support, but sometimes we can't always support them financially, but we can support them in other ways. And the Support in Kind policy actually lays out exactly what we will do, what this council will actually do. And then from there we can build on other things if it's necessary. So just for information for the general public, there is a partnership agreement with Ventnor Carnival, because we recognise that that's an important event for the town that increases local economy, footfall into the town. That's important. So not only have we got supporting policy in kind, but also we've got a partnership agreement so that each party knows and it's transparently clear on what we're going to do and what we're going to support. And this is just building part of the picture of supporting organisations in the community. Any questions? Steve?
Just a comment really that obviously the support is nil to negligible additional cost to the Isle of Council, but the value is so much greater that it actually delivers so a great piece of support.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay.
I just, I'm in full support of it as well, because it's good to have a framework and a structure to avoid any kind of ambiguity, so everyone's treated fairly, so that's a good thing.
Thanks, Carl. Alison?
Yeah, just to say that the Support in Kind policy may well cross over quite nicely with Planet Aware, because obviously we're not going to contribute anything financially to that. They're prepared to put our logo on the posters, and the posters are very professionally done, or going to be done. And so Ventnor Town Council potentially providing Support in Kind to them is a way for us to kind of give back, but not monetarily.
Yeah. Okay.
May I just ask the question, looking through it, as to something like free parking for events? Where would it be covered in here? I'm just going through it to try and see if I can pick it up.
I've got a separate policy on that.
Yeah,
Have we got,
yeah.
so that is covered somewhere else.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, can I have a proposer, please? John?
You don't- It's for information.
Ah, right. Oh yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I forgot about it. That's right.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's information, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, none of us get there.
Okay, next one is for information again, and that's the absence policy, sickness absence, compassionate leave and special leave. Do any of the officers or anyone want to comment on this?
Only briefly to note that obviously as a council, your employers, and though a lot of employment issues are dealt with by the Policy and Resources Committee, it's sensible for members to have a full understanding of policies that affect the staff.
Indeed. Alison?
So the original sickness absence policy was due to be reviewed, and Policy and Resources Committee did review that, and then there were some various clauses and paragraphs that were added, which is now, so it's been renamed the absence policy, which includes sickness and compassionate leave and special leave.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, that is only for information. At the next junction, it's about exclusion of the public, but before I do that, I'd just like to let you know that the date of the next crucial meetings that are coming up, obviously the annual Town Council meeting will be at 6 p.m. on Monday the 18th of May, and that will be at St Catherine's Church. And the next Town Council meeting will be Monday the 8th of June, the usual place here at 7 o'clock. Okay, thank you for attending, really appreciate your input. Thank you. See you, Ross.
See you later.
Right.